Everyone. I'd say Monday night, but it's Wednesday. We'll be back to Mondays next week, 9 p.m. Eastern. Welcome to the Monday night service workshop. Tonight we are on Tradition VII. I'm very thankful that the speaker was able to rearrange his schedule. I want to say thank you. I was just at the Australian AA National Convention. It was awesome. AA is alive and well in Australia. I just passed this on too, that, sometimes we all think we live in a bubble that, A is going to die tomorrow and it's a slippery slope and it's been watered down and blah, 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 blah. And I'm just going to let you know that I meet people all over. They love the traditions. They love the concepts. They love our history. And A is not going anywhere. That is for certain. I always give a little PSA about the time of the year it is. So let's just say this. It is post-conference, like 3 days, right? Like maybe something like that, 4 days, God knows, 5 days, whatever. I know the conference, they made all their decisions. Some of them nobody will ever talk about. Some of them people won't stop talking about, probably for 20 years. That's just the way AA rolls. That's the way it goes. It also means some people are going to be really happy and some people are going to be unhappy. And then there'll be a bunch of people that don't care. That's the way AA rolls as well. I did see some posts on social media. Obviously, in the Monday night group, there was a group announcement. We don't allow any discussions. Go to hear your delegate give you a report, get all the information. In 3 months, if you want to post something, be my guest, but not now. Now is the time to, if you have questions about what happened, go talk to someone that was in the room and get their feedback. You still might not agree, but at least become informed. That's the best advice I can give. So we will open up with the serenity prayer. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. If you happen to be here tonight new and you've never been here before, the format's easy. We'll read the long form of the seventh tradition. I'll talk for a couple of minutes. I'll turn it over to our guest speaker. I'm very excited because I know our guest speaker is going to have a lot of history about the tradition, and that's kind of what we focus on. What's the literature and the history say? We will then open it up for people to share. A couple of people, 2 or 3 minutes each. It's 2 minutes actually, and we clock it. If you get cut off, it's not personal. And then we will go to questions and answers, which gets submitted through chat, and I'll read it out loud, and Roger and Christian and I can give it a whirl. Probably the best thing we can do is send you to the literature as a way to find your own information. I don't have to repeat it a million times. If you are in a group conscience discussion and it's heated, and boy, everyone is set in their ways, and everyone has something new, some new spiritual bomb to drop to get everyone to see it their way. If that spiritual bomb includes someone else's interpretation, please vote against that person, okay? I don't even care if they say, and Billy N said this, who cares? Is there information based on literature and history? That's what we should be discussing. Kind of worshiping the interpretation or someone else's interpretation, it really doesn't provide any useful information to anybody. If you've never been here before, we welcome everybody here. In fact, that's why we do Monday night, because I have a bunch of personal pet peeves, but one of my biggest pet peeves in AA service is these lineage service sponsee only concept studies and tradition studies, where if you're not in the in club, you don't get to go. Those drive me crazy. So this one is so that everybody can attend. We don't care. We have people that love the plain language big book and hate the plain language big book. We have people that still don't say the new preamble and people that love the new preamble, and we want it that way. We want the most diverse AA opinions possible, because I believe that's what keeps AA kind of safe in the middle of the road. So let me read the long form of the seventh tradition. The AA groups themselves ought to be fully self-supported by the voluntary contributions of their own members. We think that each group should soon achieve this ideal, that any public solicitation of funds using the name of Alcoholics Anonymous is highly dangerous, whether by groups, clubs, hospitals, or outside agencies, that acceptance of large gifts from any source or of contributions carrying any obligation whatever is unwise. Then, too, we view with much concern those AA treasuries which continue beyond prudent reserves to accumulate funds for no stated AA purpose. Experience has often warned us that nothing can so surely destroy our spiritual heritage as futile disputes over property, money, and authority. Now, we have a good speaker tonight, so I don't have to say certain things. I have the Time magazine right across the room from me. When Rockefeller had the dinner, how important's that dinner? It would be like getting Warren Buffett, Bill Gates, Derek Jeter, and God knows what other billionaires together today. That's who he was at the time. And what did the smartest or richest man, best business person have to say at the time? Don't give these people any money. Basically, he was saying their families have been giving them money for years and they don't do anything good with it except come back and ask for more money after acting irresponsible and unaccountable. Thank God for Mr. Rockefeller. I mean, really, really thank God. I used to go to this meeting in Red Bank, New Jersey. I used to love that the chairperson on Friday night, he had a good, dry sense of humor. And when he was passing around the baskets, he would make this big announcement to all the family members on anniversary night. He'd say, I know this is going to be a shocking announcement for all you parents, spouses, God knows what else. But for the first time in your alcoholic's life, we are not going to be asking you for money. We do not want your money. We do not want it in our basket. Like, I think that's the hardest thing to accept about the seventh tradition, is for us to be responsible for our own way. And anyone that knows me knows I love the THEIR there in the first paragraph of the long form, in the first sentence, that each group should be fully self-supported by their own members. No, I'm not saying don't take other AA members' money. I am saying your group shouldn't need it. I am saying your group should be self-supporting if they had to be just on its own members. I am saying 75% of the money you put in baskets should be your home groups. I'm not counting any kind of special event or anything like that. I'm just talking about your usual monthly life in AA, that your first responsibility is your home group. And, you know, there's a lot of different layers to this. Group, district, area, general service board. I am not going to be talking about the power of the purse tonight. We can talk about that another time. I will say this, though. If you are a GSR or an active home group member and your group once a quarter, twice a year or whatever decides how much money they're going to pass on, make sure you're informed. You know, I just talked to a GSR today in like Hamilton or Burlington, Ontario. And, you know, don't just divide percentages all the time and give the same percentage to everybody. Like, have a good idea. How is your local intergroup or central office doing? How is your district doing? How is your area doing? How's the general service board doing? You know, don't be afraid to adjust those. Sometimes one of those entities is doing better than another. So it might be more responsible to send more of your contributions that way. But again, you can only do that if you're connected to the middle of AA and you have a GSR, or if you have if you are in an area that has an intergroup and a central office, an intergroup and central office rep. I'll just say one more thing, just on a high level of service, that deficit budgets are not self-supporting, and deficit budgets do not align with the seventh tradition at all. You can read as much history, just read away. We have a strange disconnect between recovery and the traditions regarding money. A very strange disconnect. Some of you, I'm sure, are well aware of what we call the bedevilments in that page in the big book. I'm sure I'm not the only one. I'm sure some of you, I'm sure I've had money challenges. I'm sure some of you have. I'm sure some of you have had people in AA come to you saying, I have a big problem. And then you sit down in a diner with them or in your backyard or somewhere, and shockingly, it's money. And when you dive into that problem, it seems alcoholics are not really that complex. 99% of the time, the problem is the same. If you add up, do I have a napkin right here? Yes, I do have a napkin. If you're at a diner and you take a napkin and you draw a line down the middle, and on the left-hand side, you say to the person, how much money you take in a month? Pension, Social Security, you go to work, alimony, child support, whatever. Like, what's the total amount of money you take in a month? And then on the right hand, you say, how much do you spend? More often than not, you will find out that alcoholics are a strange breed. They like to spend more than they take in. And a lot of us grew up not well grounded. So when they were teaching classes like on budgeting and family budgeting and things like that, we don't know anything about it. But what I love about the recovery side of the program is that if you just heard that from a member, you wouldn't say to them, you know what? Apply for another credit card and use cash advances on that to pay off the minimums on the other 6 cards you have. No one would ever say that. You would help the person maybe learn about budgeting, maybe learning about saving a little bit of what you take in, whether you get paid monthly, weekly, biweekly, whatever. You would help them learn, because we like to tell the joke of, an alcoholic's in a hole, and a priest walks by, and a rabbi walks by, and a shaman walks by, and a cowboy walks by, and a cop walks by. And, we like to say that the alcoholic jumps down in the hole, but that's really part B. The first rule of getting out of hole is stop digging. That's step 1 of getting out of a hole. Stop digging. It's only in the service structure that we pass on this lunacy of, well, just get another credit card and use cash advances to pay. And that's basically what we're saying when we have deficit budgets. Now, if you have too much money, of course, a deficit budget might be needed. But the Alcoholic Foundation's been around since 1939. Only twice in the last 80 or so years have we had to have a deficit budget, in 2001 and 2002. We had so much money in the reserve fund, we lowered the price of a big book by $1, and we budgeted to lose money. But, that's usually not a problem we have to deal with. But so many people say, and let's just talk about the word budget again for intergroups, central offices, districts, areas. It drives me crazy that on the recovery side of the program, we love the dictionary. We love it. I even have a 1939 one in my office. We love the dictionary, and the lunatics love the 1939 dictionary, right? We love to look up words. And I didn't know that when I came here. I didn't know that I made up my own definition of words. I had no idea until I started going through the big book with someone who suggested we should look up certain words so that you're going on the real definition of the word and not the one that you make up. Why don't we do that in service? The definition of a budget is a financial plan or statement that estimates income and expenses over a specific amount of time. If somebody in AA service, I don't care if they're a trustee, a delegate, an alternate delegate, an area chair, if somebody in area in general service or anywhere is telling you that our budgeting process is just to add up expenses and then we make the revenue that number, or we don't estimate the revenue, they're wrong. I don't know what more I could say about that. That look up words. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to my good buddy Christian. I'm really excited that he came here. Look at him. He even wore, we don't have money or conformity, but he wears a tie when he speaks. So look at that. Thanks, Christian. You can unmute yourself.
Thanks, Billy. Hey, everybody. My name's Christian. I'm an alcoholic. Full transparency. My sponsor asked me to wear a tie anytime I'm standing in front or sitting in front of you good people. But full disclosure, I have sweatshorts on underneath the desk. I want to thank Billy and the Monday Night Service Workshop for having me. What an honor to be here with you guys. Um, you guys deep in the general service trenches are my heroes, which is a far cry from and the opposite of when I got here. My heroes were the folks who accumulated a lot of things, and you guys give it all away. Which is kind of a big part of what we're talking about tonight. We're all participating in a rescue mission, ours and other drunks. I haven't had a drink since June 27th of 2008, and that may not impress you guys, but impresses the heck out of me. And I'm a member of the Deerfield Beach Study Group. We meet in person and on Zoom Monday nights at 7:30 Eastern Time at the Women's Club in Deerfield Beach. So when Billy sent me the first flyer of the new series, it said history of the traditions. And he followed it up with a text asking me which one I wanted to do. And I immediately said seven. And first, I wanted to, Billy alluded to it. I want to point out to everyone some of the literature that I believe is imperative for studying Tradition VII. Obviously, Language of the Heart and Comes of Age. We have AA guidelines on finance, where money and spirituality mix pamphlet, AA group pamphlet, the AA group treasurer pamphlet. There's a self-support green card, and also GSO puts out a little seven tradition fact sheet. I believe they do it every year, which is has some cool stats on it. And there's also the amazing letters like Glenn Gary's corporate poverty piece, which is apropos, especially now. And also there's a letter, I believe it was a letter from World Service that came out in, I think, the 80s, called Challenges of the Seventh Tradition. And it's about us relying too heavily on literature sales. There's a bunch, and I'm sure I'm leaving some out, but that's, somebody will correct me, I'm sure. Now, there's a lot of different directions you can go when you're talking about the seven tradition. Honestly, 20 minutes is not enough to cover all the bases. I'm an A history nerd, so that's kind of the base I wanted to mostly focus on. Uh, so, uh, if you're not aware, the first time that the essence of the seventh tradition is mentioned in writing, it's in There's a Solution. It says there are no fees to pay, and that's written in either May or June of 1938. Ironically, Bill will write Bill's story first, then There's a Solution, and he'll attach it to the first letter of the doctor's opinion, which was actually an endorsement for Bill and not of Alcoholics Anonymous. And they would send those two chapters in the letter out to mostly non-alcoholic people to kind of drum up money for the writing of the big book. So the next time it shows up is in the foreword to the first edition, which is written most likely in early 1939. It actually mentions a handful of traditions, but it says there are no fees or dues whatsoever. And kind of interesting seeing as Bill won't write the traditions until almost 7 years later. But that's a different talk. Maybe there's no fees or dues in the conventional sense of the word, but there are sacrifices, and sometimes they're money, sometimes they're time or talents. And Bill will talk beautifully about this in Concept 12 at the beginning of Warranty 2. Um, if you read the pamphlet Where Money and Spirituality Mix, it talks about Ebby making a phone call and also getting on the subway to go see Bill, and it costs him 10 cents. Um, I'm more fond of the story June 28th of 1935, uh, which is only a few days after Bob's last drink, 9 or 16, depending on what historian you believe. And Bill and Bob uh, make a phone call to Akron City Hospital. They don't have unlimited cell phone data back then. They get in Bob's old car, probably in Oakland, that he paid for with gas that he also paid for, and they go see a guy named Bill D, who's Alcoholics Anonymous number three. If you listen to Bill D's talk, he says that he thought that we were he was worried that we were all about the money. And they say to him, one of my favorite lines in early AA history, they say, we wouldn't take a penny if you had $1 million. Now, that line is what specifically convinces Bill D to give these guys the time of day. I remember in early 2008, I called the Hernando County Intergroup office, and they sent two guys out to my house. Now, granted, when they knocked on the door, I hid and didn't answer the door because I was scared. But those two guys sacrificed their time, their money, cell phone bills, gas, insurance, never mind all the expenses at Hernando County Intergroup, and to come and rescue a guy like me. So, in order to understand the history of how the tradition ball gets rolling, specifically Tradition VII, I believe we have to look at three critical events that happened in 1937. So, in April of that year, the New York group will sever ties with the Oxford group, forcing Bill to ask himself the question like, who are we and how are we going to function on our own? So Akron will remain with the Oxford Group until late 1939, which is 2.5 years later, pretty much. January 23rd of 1937, Ebby will get drunk again and gets admitted to Towns Hospital. And this is a huge blow to Bill. He never stops trying to understand why Ebby couldn't seem to get what he had. And October 8th of 1937, Bill will get let go from his job at Core and Foley, an investment firm where he's worked since January of that year. Now he has the time to dedicate all his efforts to the growth of Alcoholics Anonymous. And that is his last like career type job that he ever has. The following day, October 9th, Bill and Lois, Sterling Parker and his wife, Bill Rudell and his wife, and Fitz Mayo get in a car and they drive to Akron, Ohio. They have this powwow meeting and they count that they have 40 sober alcoholics in Akron and New York. Bill will put forth this grand plan to have AA hospitals, paid missionaries, and also they're going to write a book. They have a vote. The plan passes narrowly. It's actually 10 to 8. Akron's not really for it. The New York people obviously are. And there was a lot of politicking happening back then. But Akron's not given any money. So they send Bill packing and they say, if you want to drum up funds and you want to do these projects, it's all on you. So 6 months, Bill's having no luck securing money for these projects. So he goes to see his brother-in-law, Dr. Leonard Strong, who actually paid for his three of his detox trips to Towns Hospital. And he's telling him what's going on in his life. And he's like, I'm having no luck securing any money for, I believe we can help drunks. And Dr. Leonard Strong says, well, I happen to be friends with a guy named Willard Richardson. Well, Willard Richardson happens to be manager of John D. Rockefeller's philanthropies and or his charitable endeavors. So Dr. Strong sets up a lunch between Bill and Willard, and they have lunch. He likes what he hears, and he sets up a lunch with Bill and John D. Rockefeller. So on December 1937, dates, the exact dates unknown as far as I know, Bill, Bob, Hank P, Fitz, and Ned P, and also Dr. Silkworth will go to Rockefeller Plaza and they will meet Rockefeller and some of his inner circle. So John D. Rockefeller's there, Willard Richardson's there, a guy named Frank Amos is there. He's one of Rockefeller's inner circle, one of his trusted associates, and he's also an advertising guy. A. Leroy Chipman is there. He's going to play a big part. He'll go on to be a non-alcoholic trustee. So will Frank Amos. He handles all of Rockefeller's real estate endeavors, and Albert Scott is there, and he's a Rockefeller advisor, and also he's the chairman of the trustees of Riverside Church. It's actually Albert Scott who'll say, he'll be the first to question the need for money at this meeting. And what he says is this, he says, I am deeply impressed and moved by what has been said here, but aren't you boys afraid that if you had money, you might create a professional class? Sounds like Tradition VIII, maybe. Aren't you afraid that the management of plants, properties, and hospitals would distract you from your purely goodwill aims? So they send Frank Amos down to Akron in February 1938. He travels to Akron and he actually looks at three real estate properties possible for these AA hospitals. He likes what he sees that's happening down in Akron, so he comes back and he furnishes a report to Willard Richardson saying that with the recommendation that they should donate $50,000 to this new movement. Richardson passes the report on to Rockefeller, and Rockefeller shoots it down. He declines to provide any large funding Bill will hope for because he fears money is going to professionalize or spoil the movement. In 1951, Bill gives a talk where he recalls what Rockefeller says, and again, uh, I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll put a small sum in the Riverside Church treasury, and you can draw it out and at least try to help these two men for a while this thing should be self-sustaining. Money Dick will spoil this thing. So March 17th, 1938, Rockefeller will put $5,000 in the Riverside Church treasury, but he says, but please don't ask me for any more money. $3,000 of that money is used to pay off Dr. Bob's mortgage. And then Bill and Bob will draw $30 a week as a stipend for living expenses. A little sidebar, Riverside Church today sits directly across the street from the General Service Office. So Billy alluded to it on February 8th, 1940. Rockefeller will host a dinner for AA at the Union Club in New York City. 187 people are invited. 137 of those people RSVP their regrets, so only 60 attend. They sit an AA member at each table who would tell his story. So Rockefeller will go on to buy 400 copies of the Big Book to give to each guest on his dinner list. We sell the book to him for $1 a piece, which it's normally $3.50 a piece, so he gets a $2.50 discount. John D. Rockefeller Jr. is not present, but his son is. He expressed his father's regret. And Albert Scott is also there. But he says from the podium that Rockefeller is deeply interested in the work, but very sorry he couldn't be there. Harry Emerson Fosdick is also there. He's actually on the invitation as one of the guest speakers. And at the time, he's one of the most prominent ministers of the 20th century. He had written actually a favorable endorsement, a favorable review of the Big Book. And at that dinner from the podium, he'll say, very small overhead financially, no big organization, nobody making anything out of it, no high salaried staff. The dinner will give AA some major legitimacy, but not the money that it's looking for. Um, In 1940, again, A. Leroy Chipman, who I said became a non-alcoholic trustee, and he also architects the Alcoholic Foundation, which will later become the General Service Conference. He persuades Rockefeller to, and some of the guests to loan us $8,000, and that $8,000 was used to pay Charlie Towns back $2,500 that he originally gave us to publish the Big Book, and also it will allow us to buy back all those $25 shares of Works Publishing so we can own the book ourselves. J.D. Rockefeller Jr. gave $4,000. Nelson Rockefeller gave $500, and the guests make up the rest. Subsequently, in 2 years later, we'll pay that money back from Big Book royalties. At that dinner, Nelson Rockefeller will say, and I quote, "Gentlemen, you can all see that this is a work of goodwill. The power lies in the fact that one member carries the good message to the next without any thought of financial income or reward. Therefore, it is our belief that Alcoholics Anonymous should be self-supporting. So far as money is concerned, it needs only our goodwill." And in Comes of Age, Bill Wilson will say, whereupon the guests clapped lustily, and after cordial handshakes and goodbyes all around, the whole $1 billion worth of them walked out the door. So that's a little bit more in-depth stuff on the history of the Rockefeller Seventh Tradition tie. And again, 20 minutes is not enough to talk about
You
the.
got an extra 10 if you need it. Be my guest.
Yeah, all right. All right. Thanks, Billy. Um, well, so we could go into how only 32% of AA groups contribute to GSO. We could talk about things like the AA birthday club, the old story that if everybody participated in the birthday club, we could be fully self-supporting and not have to rely on literature sales. Or when Bill writes in the 12 and 12 that in the later 40s that hats never got folding money in those days, which implied that in the late 40s some people actually put folding money in the basket, right? And at that time, the average cost of a house in the United States was $6,000, which is mind blowing to me. But I want to hear more from you guys. So I did want to tell a personal story. Billy read the Tradition VII and the line that says the AA groups themselves ought to be fully supported by voluntary contributions of their own members. So this personal story is a little experience that I have about an experience I had about the seventh tradition at the group level. Or maybe it's about praying for resentment. I don't know. Or restraining pen and tongue. Might be all of those things. And I know that the voluntary, the voluntary contributions of their own members, that's an ideal that we strive toward. He says it in the next line of that of the tradition, but I think about this now, and to be honest, I've never been to a meeting that said the basket was for group members only. I've never been to a meeting that didn't pass a basket or just passed it at a business meeting. So I'm not sure how close we're getting to that, if at all. But I get a call from a friend one day. He's complaining about his group's business meeting and how they voted to use 500 bucks from the basket to fund a picnic. I shared some experience and obviously my opinion. I'm far from perfect, folks. Grounded in literature, though, I hope. Uh, I went to his group a couple weeks later on a Saturday morning. I sit down next to him, and he's talking to another group member about this exact thing. So I'm listening quietly, and I lean over and I open my big fat mouth. I said, "Hey, just an FYI, but when I put a dollar in the basket, I have an expectation that it's going to go to AA." Well, the other gentleman said, "Well, we don't need your dollar and we don't need you either." And I said, um, I said, well, that may be true, but another reason that I put money in the basket is to be an example. So the new guy or the gal can see me do it and hopefully will follow suit and participate in his rescue mission. Well, the meeting starts, and it's safe to say I don't hear anything that's said all meeting. But I pull up the AA guidelines on finance, and after the meeting, I ask him for his phone number and I text him the guidelines. And then I read it to him. I read the pot to him that talks about parties and cakes and how we ought not do that. And then I said to him, uh, you never should tell anybody that we don't need them in AA. And I'll be honest with you, folks. I'm still praying for that particular person, and I see him every now and again, and I try to be as nice as possible because that's what you guys taught me how to do. So I'm grateful to be here. Thanks for having me.
Thank you, Christian. We really appreciate you and giving us all that history. Amazing. Couple of things to talk about before we go on to questions. Mail and phones. It's interesting that Christian talked about that was before unlimited phones, right? No one had unlimited, you got in trouble if you made a long distance call at your parents' house. Um, but a lot of people don't know the original area map. If there was more than one area in a state, it was drawn around area codes. Just go back to all you have to do is look back at an old area map New Jersey had two area codes. That's why we have North and South Jersey, because phone calls was so expensive. Mail, too. For a long time, inside the service structure, especially at the area and the GSO level, I mean, there was a special class to get certified in bulk mailing, like you went to a class at the post office so that you could like handle bulk mailing because it was such a big cost of ours. Um, but I do want to talk about a couple of things. Number one, total pet peeve: people that are a trusted servant and maybe they're doing okay in life and they don't want to put their expenses in. All you're doing is preventing someone who doesn't have as much money as you from serving in that position, number one. And number two, all you're doing is wrecking the budgeting process for the treasurer for the next year, because it looks like your committee needs less money than it really does. And if you base it on the last year's expenses, if you happen to be, there is a solution to this problem. If your higher power has blessed you so, and you feel guilty putting in a receipt for $30 of mileage money, put the receipt in, get the $30, and put it in the next AA basket you're at. It's very simple. It's all you have to do. But we need to make sure that service was never meant for only those of some particular economic class. It just wasn't. And so we have to do everything we can to send the message, which then let me get to this next issue and pass on a little general service conference experience. District meetings, area meetings, intergroup delegate meetings, whatever, that pass a seventh tradition basket. It is totally out of line with the seventh tradition and unfair to the people who are doing that service. There is no, let me repeat this, no seventh tradition baskets at the General Service Conference. Zero. The only place you will find one is in the morning AA meeting, which has their own seventh tradition and is not technically part of the conference, so that meeting is self-supporting, paying for the space they're using in the hotel. When we send a GSR or an intergroup rep to a service meeting, and let's say, we can easily say, well, if they don't have anything, don't put anything in the basket. But that's expecting that the person is unaffected by looking different than other people. Now, I don't know about all of you, but when you come to AA, sometimes you want to fit in. And maybe you don't have $2 or $3 to put in a basket, but the three people down the row from you just put $2 or $3 in. So you think you have to. Mind you, your group has been sending your district and area money for them to serve your district and group. We've just created a new stream. I do like the areas that are using the General Service Conference method. They have a registration cost for their assembly, but then the group pays it. It's $10 or $15. The group pays it, much like the area pays the minimum suggested or whatever they want for the General Service Conference. I also want to talk about some bad AA math. I don't know if we invented bad math, but we are sure good at it. We get so concerned with wanting to let everyone participate. I want everyone to participate. But we use illogical math. And I'm going to use an AA convention or conference or roundup as an example. Let's just say your expenses for a particular convention were $17,500. And let's just say for sure you're going to get 500 people. You might get 550 or 6, but you're going to get 500. So what's the safe course of action? You divide the total expenses by the minimum number you expect to be there. In this case, 17,500 divided by 500 is $35. That would be break even if you get the minimum amount of people. But you've all been on committees. You know what happens. Then someone says, what are we going to do about the scholarships? We need to make sure everyone can attend. And that's where we go off the deep end. We start having silent auctions of stuff that's donated, not even contributed, donated by outside companies or organizations. That's where we think we need to like shake people down for scholarships. Hey, can you give a scholarship? Can you give a scholarship? You know what math actually makes sense? If 35 is the number, someone who can afford $35 can afford 40. That's pretty logical. So charge the people who can afford it a little bit more. If in the same scenario of 500 people attending, you made registration 40 instead of 35, you would collect $2,500 extra, which is 62 point something free people to get in. But our alcoholic minds, sometimes we always want to go to, well, let's go to the easier, softer way, or let's go at something fundraising or something like that. And I'm not going to put it up on the screen, but like I've been to an AA convention where the Saturday night banquet had a circle and triangle ice sculpture. Okay. I don't know how much money a circle and triangle ice sculpture costs, but my guess is at least 50 or so newcomers who can't afford it. Now, I'm not saying conferences and conventions and roundups shouldn't charge a fee, because what you're paying for is not to go to an AA meeting. You're helping pay for the cost of renting the space and the coffee and everything else. No one's kicking anyone out of an AA convention that can't afford it, but I will pass on my experience. First, have a lot of meeting directories or the QR code for your local intergroup or meeting guide app. Like, I know what it's like. Like, I grew up in young people's AA. Okay. That means I know how it looked back then. Back then, it looked like somebody in designer jeans with good sneakers with 2 or 3 packs of Marlboros, but can't afford to pay the dance. Okay. That's what it looks like in young people's. Today, it looks like 2 extra vials of vape juice, maybe a Monster or 2 in my hand, a set of Air Jordans, but I can't afford to pay for the dance, right? That's not going to end. AA hasn't changed, just the way it looks changes a little bit. But I will pass on something that has never failed me once, and I was given it by somebody else. I've had lots of people call me and say, you know what, Billy, I'd love to go to that big book event. Or Billy, I really want to go to that convention. Or there's a young people's conference and I literally do not have the extra money. There's always an email address or a phone number on a flyer. All you got to do is call those people a week before and just say, you know, my sponsor said I need to humble myself. I really want to go to your event, but I don't have the $30. I'm just coming back. I'm in bad shape financially. But I was wondering, like, could I show up 6 hours early and help set up? Could I stay that night and help tear down? Could I stay over the weekend and be there on Sunday when you all break down the event? Like there's ways to contribute without money. This is not about an us or them money thing. Um, it's just super important that we be self-supporting because we are a group of people who seem to like the easier, softer way, and we go that way easy. But as someone who's worked with a lot of central offices on finances, you don't have to dig down deep into AA finances to see where it goes off the rails. Whenever we become dependent on something other than contributions or a registration price, we are building a model that's not sustainable. We have intergroups and central offices that have big like dinner dances or events. But what happens sooner or later, like that's 20 or 30% of the annual revenue. And then what happens when it doesn't happen one year? And people say, well, that'll never happen. Well, I can tell you about a thing called Superstorm Sandy. No one ever thought a hurricane hitting in the Northeast would shut down the Bill W. dinner. Or they'll be able to pull off the Bill W. dinner, but there's going to be a lot of people that can't attend. And then the committee is forced to make the decision, do we refund the money or not? In that situation, a decision was made to not refund a couple of hundred people that could not get to it because of road closures. And what did that do? Oh, Christian already hit the R word. Those groups still don't go to the Bill W. dinner. They still won't go. They're still furious. That's why there's still a men's group in Southern California. Somehow they slipped by when they registered their name in New York City, but it's called the FNY group. I don't have to tell you what the F stands for, but the NY stands for New York. They had such a resentment over something GSO did. I mean, people in AA are really incredible. There's actually still a group registered that's the MFSG group. That's the Mother Can't Say the Word Spiritual group, right? So we're really, really talented in finding ways, to live out our resentments. But why have the resentment to begin with, right? If we're dependent on like literature profit, we need some, we always have. There's nothing evil about literature profit. The 12th concept, the warranty, talks about it. When people define self-supporting as only being supported by contributions, I don't think that goes along with concept 12. I think concept 12 says we've always taken a little money from literature profit, but when we have to depend 30 or 40% on literature profit, that's not sustainable. And we have some core, we call them principles, values. One of the most important ones is that when you go, I know there's some people here who've been to the General Service Office in New York. When you get off the elevator, the first thing you see is the Serenity Prayer in a whole bunch of different languages. I've literally been in a meeting at that conference room multiple times and have seen people who've never been to that office before get off the elevator and stop and break down in tears, looking at all those different languages of the Serenity Prayer. But what makes us so different? You go to another nonprofit or charity, and what do you see when you get off the elevator or enter the building? You see the so-and-so family plaque for giving money. You see the list of platinum or gold or silver donors. We don't do that in Alcoholics Anonymous. We actually put an annual restriction on how much each member can give to the General Service Board. We actually put a restriction on how much each member can give to the General Service Board when you pass away and only give one time. I don't want to dive into the reserve fund, but I will just say this about the General Service Board Reserve Fund. It's not an endowment. Christian mentioned the presentation by Gary Glenn. I use his last name because he's a past Class A trustee, past Class A treasurer of the General Service Board, and past chair of the General Service Board. And he gave one of the most important talks about the seventh tradition ever, titled Spiritual Poverty. It is in the Monday night group. It's in the files section, just so you know it's there. I also I'm reminding myself now that I need to. We have a WhatsApp group now for this night, for this workshop, for people who don't use a lot of social media. I just put the WhatsApp number there. If you want to be in it, just send me a message. Um, but we don't have an endowment. So what does that mean? I'll just use $1 million as an example. Let's say there's $1 million in a reserve fund, okay, or a prudent reserve, what you want, whatever, call it what you want. And let's say you get low interest of like 2% from a CD or a treasury bill. So at $1 million, you'd make $20,000. In an endowment situation, other not for profits and charities, they use that money to fund their current year. They build up a big endowment. See, in AA, we want each generation, each new year of membership to be self supporting. We have that reserve fund for emergencies like COVID when we needed the money, but we don't have a fancy endowment. We actually restrict the endowment. It's not allowed to have more than 12 months. I flew back on a plane next to the chairman of the board of a very large nonprofit that you would know the name of. When I told him we didn't take outside money, I thought he was going to have a heart attack on the plane. When I told him that we restrict our reserve fund and if it goes over 12 months, we have to find a way to lower it, he could not believe it. After that plane ride, he emailed me and wanted a service manual. I sent him a 12 and 12 too, so he could read about the traditions. But it's what makes us uniquely different is our responsibility. So I'm going to open it up for questions. I see a couple. Here you go, Christian. What does the visual look like to newcomers today when so many members are using electronic payment methods? I had an old timer shake the basket at me after it went around and he didn't because he didn't see me put money in.
That's that's unfortunate, one. The what does the visual look like? I don't know what that means. What is it? I mean, I
I
when
think what he's saying is some groups have gone to the effort
yes.
of making a laminated card with a QR code that's
Oh,
in the basket or putting it on the basket so that it's right there.
okay. I personally, I like that. As somebody who doesn't always carry cash anymore, and to let me say that I was against this for a handful. I was against this at first when it first came out. But times are changing and everything's going more electronic. I don't know if that's fortunate or unfortunate. But as somebody who doesn't have a dollar to put in the, or more than that, hopefully, to put in the, if I don't have cash on me, I do have the ability uh, to donate by Zelle or contribute by Zelle, excuse me. So, but the old guy wagging his finger, that's the old adage of, I have to contribute, and we don't have to contribute. This is for free and for fun. So, but if you can contribute, we certainly need you to. So, yeah, that's unfortunate.
There is a bad statement that's made. It's like other bad statements in AA. They sound funny, so everybody repeats them, you know?
There's a lot of those.
Like I could give you an example, like make yourself first on your amends list, something like that, tragic. Um, one of the ones with the seventh tradition is we need you more than your money. We actually need both. We don't care if you don't have any, but if you do have some, we need it along with you because we don't take other people's money. I will say that I think the electronic payment thing is the best thing for home groups because it allows home group members to send once a month or every 2 weeks. A lot, AA failed this test big time. Other people, I haven't had to say it a lot because it seems like COVID was yesterday sometimes and 100 years another time. But I used to say we were so bad at embracing technology that COVID was like a sponsee to AA. Sometimes they need a pat on the back and sometimes they need a kick in the ass. And AA regarding technology needed a big kick in the ass. AA stopped receiving literature, orders, and contributions in March of 2020, like came to a screeching halt. April, hardly any money. May, hardly any money. So much so that in late June of 2020, they put out a video, the Class A Treasurer. July of 2020 broke every known record for largest amount of contributions ever received by the General Service Board. But the video had only been out a week. You know what really caused that? The amount of groups that went on Zoom in March and early April that weren't accepting electronic payments yet. They actually went on Zoom before they actually had an account to receive electronic payments. Prior to March of 2020, so many groups did not accept electronic payments. So that has really helped AA out, and I say it all the time, like, this is a recent story, not even like from a year ago. I recently went to a charity golf outing for work. Along with me were three very young members of my organization that I work for. I knew right away that I would be the only one that had tip money that day. I knew it. I knew it. Every one of them came up to me and they're like, Billy, you got 20 bucks? Billy, you got any cash on you? Like, before there was Uber, we were dealing with this with cab money. Like, we have to accept that a good part of society does not use cash anymore. Maybe they carry very little or none. So I think regarding the seventh tradition, I heard a story a long time ago at an AA World Services board meeting because we still did not accept electronic contributions at that time. And somebody brought up the fact that we had just went to dinner at this Italian restaurant the night before in New York City. And they had one of those glass doors that you can't see in because it had a sticker for every type of credit card they accepted. American Express, Diners Club, Visa, MasterCard, still like traveler's check sticker at the time. And I remember the person saying at the meeting, not us. We want you to bring your rolls of quarter and a check. Like, the last thing we're going to do is make it easy for our members to contribute. So it is super important that we make it easy for our members to contribute. Okay, here's a good question for you, Christian. Where is there information about the funding towards cakes and other things?
Oh, excellent. It's on the AA guidelines the AA guidelines for finance. I don't know exactly what page, but it's in the bottom right of the of the page. I can actually pull it up and tell you exactly what it says if you give me 2 seconds. Um, uh, oh, finance guidelines right here. And it says for this is in frequently asked questions. At the bottom of page 3. It says our group is planning a party to celebrate its anniversary. Can we use seventh tradition funds to pay for the decorations and food? Answer: most AA members understand that their seventh tradition contributions will be used to pay group expenses and 12 step work. Group anniversary parties, while considered traditional and helpful by many AAs, are not generally regarded as 12 step work. Some groups ask their members to dig deeper into their pockets to cover a celebration. Others choose to pass a second basket. It is a matter for each group to decide, and either course would not seem to conflict with the seventh tradition of self support.
Thank you very much. I believe the section in the AA group pamphlet on the treasurer also covers some of this. I just want to throw something else out there. A large non-money contribution by an individual member is discouraged inside the AA group pamphlet. So like somebody that owns a pizza parlor or a diner or a bakery, if they're giving so much more than everyone else, we're really putting them in a position different than everyone else, and we should not do that. We should pay for the product. I get the question all the time: should we take discounts? It's a two-part answer, I guess. We can take discounts as long as they give every other organization like ours a discount. If they're only giving us a discount because we're AA, we say no. That's actually the official General Service Board policy on the International Convention, and how the General Service Board does business. But we don't take for free from other organizations or stores or anything else. That is not self-supporting. Any other questions? Well, I want to thank Christian for being here. Really appreciate it. I want to remind everybody that if you don't, let's see, one more question quick. Ooh, here's a question. If a member of a roundup committee takes it upon themselves to pay for speakers to come in from out of town, is this wrong? Well, here's what I would say. If they're paying it directly, yes. They're putting themselves in a separate category. Now, if the roundup committee had asked for contributions from everybody or used a registration price, there's no problem with that. But simply because when one person gives that much money, maybe, they're like Gandhi, but I can tell you how most alcoholics deal. He who pays the piper plays the tune. If I'm giving money for the speakers, then my vote should be worth more than your votes. Like I should get 20 for every vote of mine. Like it's just natural human behavior. So we should be very careful. Now, I could go on a rant here that have a decent budget, a convention or your roundup, whatever it is. Don't bring too many out-of-town speakers in. There's nothing wrong. The guidelines say we can pay for a speaker's travel expense and hotel. but that's an economy ticket travel expense. Okay. Not any kind of fancy ticket travel expense. And speaker baskets. I'm not saying it's not nice to put a couple of bottles of water and some, if you're a speaker and you're traveling, you don't get to bring your car with your, my case of Topo Chico and my bag of Gruins, gummies that I like to eat. Like I can't bring them. There's nothing wrong with putting a couple of bottles of water in their room and maybe some fruit or something. But I've seen this go off the deep end sometimes too, where we're giving people ties and wallets. And I even went to some convention where I got a thank you card with a $50 bill in it. And I said to the chairperson, "What's this $50 bill for?" They're like, "Oh, we give our speakers walking around money." And I said, "Well, I'll be buying drinks with it if I take that money. Like, I can't take that $50. Like, that's why I say when we're looking at registration prices for conferences, there's ways to um, make sure that we're not excessively spending somewhere. But it's a great question. That's it. We will close with the responsibility statement. The reminder I was going to give is this. If you're in this meeting or you listen to the recording and you don't know when your delegate is giving a report back for what happened at the General Service Conference that just happened last week, ask your GSR or call your district chair, your DCM, your DCMC. Call somebody you know that's connected in service and find out when that report is going to be given or if it's given multiple times. Also, I think this is new and it's really great. There are a lot of delegate reports that are on Zoom or other platforms that you can attend. And I find it really interesting to hear alcoholics. You could hear a report from two people who were at the same conference, and it sounds like they were at a different conference. But that's the beauty of being able to hear more than one. And, I think we'll put in the WhatsApp group if we hear or see a flyer for delegate report backs, we'll put them out there because it's really interesting. And maybe you can't make it on a Saturday, but you can make it on a Wednesday night. But find out when it is. It's going to be really easy to have somebody get you all lit up over something that happened at the conference. It maybe already has. But before you get invested in being totally jacked up about it, listen to a report from someone who was there. Listen to the discussion that occurred. Ask them why they made the decision. Why did it seem the vote went that way? Because it's very interesting. So that's it. After a moment of silence, we will close with the responsibility statement. I am responsible. When anybody anywhere reaches out for help, I want the hand of AA always to be there. And for that, I am responsible. Thanks again, Christian, for all that history. It was amazing.
Thank you, Billy. Thanks for having me, buddy. Um, the just one quick thing, the pamphlet AA guide or the AA guidelines on conferences and conventions and roundups talks about that specifically.
Yes, it does. It does. All right, everyone. Have a good night.
Bye, everybody. Thanks.